and that is Carroll Media Center's 5-second warning, as I remind everyone to please silence their devices if they haven't already done so. And announce that this meeting is being streamed live to the Carroll Media Center YouTube channel, as well as the town's Facebook. Good evening, and welcome to the Town of Sykesville Mayor and Town Council meeting. Today is Monday, April 28th, 2025. And again, we call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And we begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And that brief moment of silence, please. Thank you, everybody. Okay. First item of business, as usual, is our public comments. And I'll turn to staff and ask if anyone has signed up.
We have several tonight. So I have Debbie and Michelle. Just.
Okay. And Miss Debbie, I'll ask for the record if you can announce your full name and address before you get started.
Debbie Scheller, 305 Calorama Road.
Thank you.
I have two things. At the last council meeting, it was discussed and did happen about the speed machine was placed on Calorama because of...
Speed trailer.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And we were wondering, there's several where it was placed, there's only 10 homes after where it was placed. So we were wondering if we get feedback for that, if we find out what happens with that. Kind of wondering why it was placed there, just because of the only being 10 houses further down. And we agree with whomever had the comment. There's not a lot of cars that go down there at all, except for regular, the people who live there and delivery people. And we do see the delivery people. The concern that a lot of us have is there was discussion last meeting for possibly putting in a speed bump and getting a survey. Nobody's for that on the street. Okay. So I just want to make sure that that's something that that the residents right there aren't for that.
Thank you.
The second question I have, or kind of information gathering I'm looking for, and Joe might be able to address this, is it had come to my attention that perhaps 2 of my children might still be on the voting registration for Sykesville. They're not for Carroll County, and I'm wondering how that is possible because they have not lived with us for 4 to 5 years. So I'm wondering how our town voter rolls come up and how they get updated, because I want to make sure they're not on there because they haven't lived with us and they haven't voted, but that concerns me that there may be other people that are on there that shouldn't be on there. So just...
Sure, and I can say, our voter books come directly from the county.
Okay.
So we're happy to check to see if they're showing up on ours, but
Okay.
We don't.
Now that was
we don't,
just
we don't keep our own. It's whatever the
Right.
county has is what we get.
And when they're registered in they're actually in other states.
That's the problem, actually. I don't think that there's a connection between other states' registrations. Now, if they move to a different county in Maryland, the county Carroll is getting an update.
Okay.
That I've had the same conversation with the Board of Elections at the county.
Okay, so that just might be it. I just was, when I heard that, I'm like, there's
Yeah.
other people within the area.
I've come
also.
across it about 5 or 6 times, and 2 of them are accounted for at your house. So, and then when that happens, I actually let our Board of Election supervisor know for the next thing,
Right,
to make
right.
sure that that's been updated at the county before we have ours available
Okay.
next year, 2 years from now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, absolutely.
Next is Dana Owens.
Give me 1 second here. Okay. Dana Alonzi, 7307 Spout Hill Road. And I'm going to start off just by disclosing the fact that I am the mayor's wife. I'm disclosing that because I often feel that speaking up is futile because people will disregard my perspective under the assumption that I am too biased to speak the truth. But I am a resident of this town whose service and enthusiasm to and for this town dates as far back as Stacy's. And I can no longer stay quiet. I have faith in the people of Sykesville to be able to separate my role as a resident of this town with over a decade of service from my relationship with Stacy so that my comments hold some weight. I am here tonight as a result of the partisan efforts of 3 of the candidates currently running for mayor and town council. Some of their efforts should be disqualifying, specifically this mailer that was received by town residents today, which I will leave with you if you haven't seen it. I am asking that at some point the council consider adding guidance to Chapter 33, Section A of the Town Code entitled Conduct of Elections, which states all elections shall be on a nonpartisan basis. This hardly defines conduct. It is evident that without further definition, the future of town elections will follow suit with what has been happening for the last 6 weeks in Sykesville. Who would ever want to run for council in the future after watching the unfortunate strategy of a certain faction who has been backed and supported by the county and state Republican organizations? I know that this hasn't been a fun or easy campaign period for any of you, both council and staff. My ask is not to place blame or to make a complaint, but I imagine that this chapter of the code was written a while ago, and that at least 3 of you will definitely be here for sure when this election is over. So I'm asking for you to investigate if it's time for a rewrite. After the last mayoral race in 2021, there was a quick look after that election at the size of signage in the historic district after a candidate hung an oversized banner that some found problematic. If that can be considered, I feel that something like this certainly can be considered. This week is likely going to be even more unfortunate than we can imagine. Given that I live with Stacy, I have the pleasure of witnessing all of it. On Friday at 4 p.m., the Carroll County Times called Stacy for a comment about an ethics complaint made about her by a town resident. Already today, this was received. Regarding partisan politics, and yet another threat on social media to release a video on a rogue Facebook page created a few weeks ago that will allegedly incriminate Stacy in some way. Despite the fact that none of these things intimidate us, they are grotesque and a telltale sign of what Sykesville can eventually become. And here's where my perspective is more valuable than ever. I have known Stacy since we were 20 years old. She just turned 50, by the way. Stacy Link comes from a long line of honest, hardworking people who live to do the right thing. If Stacy is fighting for someone or a group, trust me, there is no one you would rather have fighting for you. Stacy, Sykesville, and all the other little guys out there are better because you're in the world. Thank you.
Wow, I maybe should have read that ahead of time. Thank you, Dana. Who else?
Dan Anderson.
I'm not following
You
you.
want to follow? That's all.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to our consent agenda, which is inclusive this meeting of the minutes from the April 14, 2025 meeting, as well as the appointment of Andrew Minor to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a 3-year term expiring August 2028. And I presume that everyone has read the supporting documentation for both of those items. Any need for any comments? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, sir. And that is a first by Councilman Keenan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Give it to Al. Come
No,
on.
that's all right, man. I'm a little slow today.
All right, well then, for your tardiness, we'll give that to Council President Carter. You have a comment, sir?
I'd like to separate them. The first
Oh.
one I'd like to abstain from since I was not here.
Thank you for calling
The
that to my
second one
attention.
is all wonderful and great, so.
Okay, great. So the motion must be amended to approve simply the minutes, and we have an abstention following that. So the motion is amended. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And the second to the amended? Yes. All right, so all in favor of approval of the minutes from April 14, 2025, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, sir. Duly noted over there, clerk. All right, and we get to the, now we need a separate motion for the appointment of Andrew Minor to the BZA.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Keenan.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilman Grassley. Any need for debate or comment? All right, I'll call for a vote on the motion to approve the consent agenda item, appointment of Andrew Minor to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Here we go. Both of those motions have been approved.
Thank goodness.
Hey, what's that?
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. The next item is the first item of new business. It is to consider, discuss, act on the introduction of ordinance number 2025-03, an ordinance to adopt and approve the annual budget and set tax rates for the town of Sykesville, Maryland for fiscal year 2025-2026. Pardon me, I will turn this over to Joe pretty promptly. The only comment I want to extract from what I'm sure he's going to say, so it'll be a repeat when he does so, which will be worthy of mention, is that the tax rate for the coming fiscal year will remain at the current level of 32 cents per $100 of assessed value. And because that rate will not be changing from the current fiscal year, a separate tax rate public hearing is not required and will not be held. That said, we will hold a public hearing on the overall budget proposal at our council meeting on May 12th. Joe, it's all you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as stated before you is the proposed FY26 operating and capital budget. So total revenues and expenditures equal just over $6.8 million. So again, this is roughly a 23% decrease from our current fiscal year, and this is largely related to a decrease in capital spending. So again, this isn't necessarily a drastic cut in any kind of operating expenditures, just a significant amount of or less of capital expenditures.
Thank you.
As the mayor mentioned, the property tax rate is going to remain at 32 cents per $100 of assessed value. So that actually does increase our overall tax collections because, again, assessed values have increased. Again. So as the mayor stated, we don't need to go through a public hearing for the constant yield rate because, again, that law changed last year.
Thank you.
Expected income tax collections, though higher than in years past, is still in line with our 3-year running average. So keep in mind that or income tax is a difficult line item to accurately predict from year to year, which is why we use that average. So again, it's a 3-year running average of what we actually collected. It should also be noted that budgeting this way allows us to account for potential variations in collections. So should we be impacted by, say, actions on a federal or state level, we have a little bit of buffer that we can handle actually a slight decrease in overall collections of income. In addition, I'd like to point out that the town's stabilization reserve remains fully funded at $1 million. Again, this reserve was established at this level in 2020 for the purposes of alleviating any unanticipated revenue shortfalls, potential natural disasters, or unanticipated expenditures that the town, so that the town can continue providing necessary services to residents. So we've never actually had to dip into that $1 million stabilization reserve. It remains fully funded at $1 million. Separate from the stabilization reserve is our capital reserve fund. This reserve is used on an annual basis, so it ties back to our capital improvements plan. In the upcoming fiscal year, we do plan on using $100,000 out of the capital reserve for a stormwater infrastructure project on Norwood Avenue. So again, this is something that's been on the books for a little while now. We're waiting for all the work on Main Street to finish up. Now is the time that we can actually pull the trigger on the Norwood Avenue improvements. FY26 will continue the implementation of the overall capital improvements plan. This shows the completion of engineering for the Sandusky lot and Townhouse Lawn redevelopment project.
Yes.
Improvements to Villa Cooper Park and the continuation of the planning on the V.F. Shrivery Cannery building at South Branch Park. All of these projects are grant funded at just over $800,000. So again, none of this is coming from directly from tax revenue. It's all grant funding from several different sources, such as Strategic Demolition Fund from the Department of Housing and Community Development, Program Open Space from the Department of Natural Resources, and a state capital grant. The town continues to utilize our allocation of the state and local fiscal recovery funds. So this is also known as ARPA. So these are ARPA funds that we've been using. And again, these are being used for pedestrian improvements at the south end of Main Street. We anticipate this spending the balance of these remaining funds next fiscal year in the amount of $1.2 million. That number may change just depending on exactly how much we were able to spend current fiscal year, but we'll end up spending the balance next. So as a reminder, these funds must be fully expensed by the end of calendar year 2026. So we have a little over 18 months to fully spend them. Should be noted that no debt is being proposed in the proposed budget, and no additional full or part-time positions are being proposed. So as for specific operating expenditures, I'll go through most of the categories, but obviously if anybody has any questions about any specific categories, please let me know. Mayor and Town Council category, this includes the increases of salaries of elected officials in this election cycle, as well as an increase in the donation of the Sykesville Freedom District Fire Company from $10,000 to $20,000. Professional services line item includes expenses for our annual audit, legal services, and consultants. Legal services are being estimated at roughly $200,000 with an offset of unassigned revenue. So this is different than our stabilization reserve. This is based on the town's savings account. And that offset is around $150,000. So another $200,000 is being allocated to consulting services, and this is so we can complete our zoning rewrite and work towards implementing some of the transportation planning elements that we received a grant for. So I don't know if everybody remembers, but we received a Safe Streets for All grant, $200,000 Safe Streets for All grant. 160 of that is reimbursable. So looking forward to getting that project kicked off next fiscal year.
Yes.
In the administration department, this category covers 6 staff members, including myself, town clerk, parks coordinator, planner, treasurer, and 1 administrative assistant. The only significant change in this category is actually regarding our website, which I know sounds kind of funny, but it's to increase actually it's really just to accommodate the See-Click Fix feature. So we tried that out for basically a year, and obviously we've had good feedback on that. We want to keep that. So that's roughly a $5,000 expense. Plus we have to do some updates to the website just to make it ADA compliant. I do want to point out that the parks coordinator position actually took over for the development coordinator position that we used to have. So again, that's why you didn't see a spike in salary, because we didn't create a new position, we just reallocated the position that was already hired. Public safety, I did see a typo in my budget book that it's actually 9 officers, 1 chief in administration, so that was my mistake on that. But the only real significant change in the outside of some minor line item tweaks is the overtime balance was shifted down because we are fully staffed. And again, obviously, as the fiscal year goes on, if we need to adjust that, we can. That was the big change in public safety from last fiscal year to current. So Public Works, again, another typo, so I apologize for that. It's actually 7 full-time employees, 1 part-time, and then the director. So the salary line item was flat in this particular category because current fiscal year, we actually budgeted 1 heavy because we knew there was going to be a little bit of transition when the fiscal year started. So we were thinking we were actually going to be heavy 1 Public Works person. That actually didn't happen, so we really just removed that position from the overall department. So again, that's why salaries looks flat. Everybody's still potentially, we've got a couple of them in the audience. There's still increases based on performance. So. Let's see. So I should note that there is an increase in tipping fees on the county level starting January 1, but we don't believe this will significantly impact that particular line item. So we'll just monitor it come July 1 or January 1. Just to make sure there's no adjustments that need to be made, and then any adjustments that do need to be made will actually impact more of FY27 and FY26. The streets and roads line item is mainly where we have most of our snow removal. There's also contracted services here. This is typically used for beautification efforts, so we pulled that back a little bit just because of all the work that's happening on the south end. There's probably not a lot of beautification that's going to be needed in other places around downtown. We're kind of putting all of our eggs into that basket for now. Parks maintenance is relatively flat. We did see upticks in utilities, property maintenance, and equipment maintenance. These are all just cost increases of things that we've already been doing. It's not that we're trying to do more, it's just things are getting a little more expensive. We did reduce the South Branch Park property maintenance line item specifically just because that line item carried the improvements we did to the way station. And obviously we're not going to do that this year again. Visitor center and post office, relatively flat except for, and I think our treasurer mentioned this last time, that utilities overall are going up a little bit because of rate increases. So really that's the only line item that had to be tweaked in the visitor center and post office category. Historic buildings, the only change here really is a reduction in station utilities to 0 as we anticipate the tenant being able to take over these utilities at least at some point during the fiscal year. Maybe not quite on July 1, but hopefully soon there.
Yes.
The gatehouse, it might appear that this is a significant reduction, but remember we had the capital project of the porch repairs at the gatehouse, and that was $60,000, so obviously we're not going to do again. So that number came back to true operating expenses. And then really employee benefits are always a larger line item. Health insurance continues to be the biggest expense here. With a 3.5% increase from current fiscal year, though that, again, it continues to creep up. It's not nearly as high as what the average was for other legit customers. That was around just over 9%. So again, our increase was at least less than most, let's put it that way. So those are most of the operating expenses. Obviously, we already touched on a lot of the capital. Obviously, staff is certainly recommending approval of the introduction tonight, and then setting the public hearing and adoption for May 12th. And I'm available for any questions that anyone might have on any of the specifics in the proposal.
No questions, just a comment. I love the layout and
Yep.
seeing the prior years. That's
Good.
really helpful. Thank you.
Anything?
I think Joe's already answered my questions and I
Okay.
forwarded on to him, but, I think I'll say what Leo said. Just one question that you brought up, Joe, the health insurance.
Yeah.
Is that budgeted item without our refund we usually get back?
Yes, we do not factor in the refunds.
Refund, okay.
Because we don't know exactly what the refund is going to be from year to year.
Okay,
Then it's like Christmas time when we get one.
I know,
Yeah.
got it.
So typically that shows up in the revenue side. You'll see it in, I want to say it's other. It's literally just other revenues. Sometimes that number just jumps around. We can't predict it from year to year.
No, it's great documents. I really enjoyed reading them yesterday. Really enjoyed it.
Sense sarcasm.
We got.
No, it's
No, I actually think he's being sincere,
good.
and I think because of it, we need to get you a hobby. Yeah. All right.
Well, I mean, compared to what it used to be,
Yeah, I know.
12, 15 years ago, it's like,
It's amazing.
it is amazing. So it's very transparent and easy to understand what's going on. So
You
thank
just have to know where to look for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Certainly encourage the public to look at the agenda, see the links there, because again, it's not just an Excel spreadsheet. There is a budget book that's assigned to it that kind of explains everything that I just went through. Plus, there's our capital plan is attached to it as well. And you can see kind of how we've done things for a few years now.
Yeah, it's a list of accomplishments, if nothing else,
Right.
in the rears, and then it's what to look forward to, and to know how the dollars are being spent.
So just to comment on a question, so thank you for the sidewalk on Springfield in
Oh, yes.
the Capitol. So I look forward to that being evened out. Appreciate that being in there because I know I've talked about it enough. And then a question on the bridges in Miller Cooper Park. So I did not, am I correct in they're not there in the capital plan right now because of the cost? Or
Yes, they're not part of the improvements.
okay, because we continue to get a lot of questions about reopening that.
Yeah, those
Space.
bridges, the existing bridges there are just simply no longer safe. So again, they shouldn't be used. They really need to be demoed, and a plan can be put in place to rehab or not repurpose, but to replace them. But right now, that's not in the cards for at least the improvements that we're planning for Cooper Park. Mainly, most of the improvements will be along Cooper Drive, the parking area,
Right.
some of the pavilions, some of the lighting there.
So what would need to happen, because I know at one point, but just getting a lot of questions from people of, at one point it was in our plan, it was an Eagle Scout project. I've even been asked if an Eagle Scout could replace them as a project. My understanding is no, that we've,
Yeah, unfortunately not.
kind
So
of-
when we looked into originally rehabilitating those bridges, what ended up happening was the scope of the work necessary to bring them up to, like, let's just call it modern code, required a lot more environmental review and environmental scrutiny because of where they're placed. I mean, obviously, like some of those ravines that they go over are actually pretty steep, but that's a it's a known waterway. So again, the level of engineering and the amount of money that would have to go into what those bridges would have to be just wasn't something that was going to be covered by the the $170,000 of grant money that we had.
Yeah, because it started out as a decking situation and turned into a structural thing, including abutments and the whole kit and caboodle. So it's
Some of the abutments
certainly,
were starting to wash away, and again, we just couldn't. You just can't like put dirt back.
Right.
Again, everything would have to be removed and it's completely replaced.
So if we could just like not, I know it's not in the capital plan, but if we can just kind of continue to know it's there and definitely something that the kids have really enjoyed previously, and a request that we've had to kind of get that space back up and running, if we can figure out what the cost would be,
Sure.
and kind of not lose sight of it.
Yes, that's the one good thing about the capital plan is even though it might not make it necessarily in current fiscal year, we can plan it out a little better. So it's like, well, maybe this fiscal year we can plan for like an engineering component just to figure out, what does this project really look like and how much is it really going to cost? And then we can add those funds to later fiscal years.
And for safety, should we try and demo sooner?
Yes,
Okay,
we are. Yeah, it's on the radar how it works.
okay.
Ian's shaking his head. Yeah, thank you for that. Anything to my left? No. Marcus?
I'm good.
Thank you. I have no comments, other than another kudos to you. Thank you. It's amazing work, and it's not surprising, but it's appreciated. So a psych out to management over there.
Apologize for the typos.
Very good. Yeah, because you said the word transparency, and it's always been something that all of us have been angling at all the time and toward, and nobody's trying to hide anything, and it's always been at the tip of our fingers, no matter whose fingers they are. It's just a matter of looking into it, and they always look good, the numbers. So.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance
you.
2025-02 as presented and schedule the public hearing and adoption for May 12, 2025.
Thank you, Councilman Grassley. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Council President with a second. Any need for further debate?
So you will update the typos before it gets approved? Okay.
As presented with corrections, typo
That's right, let me
corrections.
re-amend it as
You got it.
presented as minor corrections.
Website immediately.
Perfect. One of those corrections are to remove all words having anything to do with an apple butter warehouse. Perfect. Okay, so any need for further comment? All right, I'll call for a vote on the motion on the table, which is to introduce ordinance number 2025-02 as presented with the noted corrections and schedule the public hearing and adoption for May 12, 2025. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that's everyone. But for the record, any opposed? All right. That is a motion that passes unanimously. Excuse me. That moves us to announcements and reports. They will be quick and brief until we get to the staff updates. So if anyone in the council chambers is looking to go care for their neighbor's cats because they're away, you might want to leave now. The announcements and reports are that the next meeting is Monday, May 12th, 2025. We have volunteer opportunities available as a crossing guard on the police auxiliary. And that is the only opening we have. So I'm just going to say how great that is. Again, to have only been absent one position for a very short period of time. If you are interested in offering your services to the town as a volunteer, whether it be at crossing guard or anything else with respect to our events, email town@sykesville.net for more information about volunteerism. I also want to take a moment to give our sole voluntary crossing guard, Doug Vog, who has been consistently showing up for our community and our kiddos since 2022, which is when he accepted his very important role. And from what I understand, it's a 3-day-a-week situation and mostly in the mornings. In the mornings, thank you, Chief. And I know with all the construction on Springfield, that by now is a distant memory. That was a joke. that his services were very much appreciated and more so needed with all of the equipment and such in place. So that brings us to our staff updates. Turn it over to Joe.
Just two very quick ones. We did hit our first hiccup on the south end streetscape, so some of the brand new curbing that they had just poured in place, turned out it ended up getting a little wavy. Some of the forms they used were not as, let's just say, structurally sound as they needed to be, so when they poured the concrete, it kind of bowed out, and it made kind of a wave effect, so all of that had actually be torn out and replaced. I know they started that effort on Friday. I honestly didn't get a chance to get down there today to see how far along they were. But I've reiterated to them that you might have lost a few days, but you need to make it up somehow.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to panic yet or say anything about when the farmers market can start, because I think you've still got enough time where they can make up some ground.
Joe,
So I just wanted to.
are they paying for the redo themselves?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not paying twice.
Can you find out for me if they have a recycling process with the concrete?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd appreciate knowing that. Thank you.
And then the only other thing, Mayor, I know you mentioned the work on Springfield Avenue. We've seen several comments about, hey, when is the striping there, the permanent striping?
God, no.
And I can say absolutely not. As a matter of fact, what's there will go away, and they'll put new lines there. It's supposed to be done this week. That's the last update we got from State Highways. So we're hopeful that by the end of this week, Springfield Avenue is officially done.
Praise be.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to our public safety report. I'll ask Chief to join us at the podium, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Before I begin, we have a very brief public safety report tonight. It only covers about 10 days, but I did want to address a couple questions that I had,
Yes, sir.
as usual. Oh,
Well, for now.
I meant
For
address
now.
them as usual.
There it is.
You know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
00046, there was a question regarding that case. And as I've explained, it was an 81-year-old gentleman who, with some cognitive issues, who had, let's just say, borrowed his neighbor's car that was running in his driveway and then drove it to a downtown restaurant. Thanks to the quick actions of Sergeant Kirkner, we were able to locate the vehicle very quickly, as well as the suspect, and the owner was notified and no charges were pressed. It was just an unfortunate incident.
But hopefully a very good lesson learned.
Hopefully. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am. The other one was 00048. The question was just asking for a little more detail. It was an 18-year-old young lady who was visiting a friend here in town. An argument ensued with the friend's mother. The victim left for a few hours, came back to find some of her belongings missing, which turned out to be Lululemon clothing, which I understand is very expensive.
Can be, yes.
And she was advised to seek criminal charges through the commissioner's office, and so that's where we're at with that. So.
Thank you.
And then thank you for your concern about one of our officers who had, was, I believe, second on the scene of a suicide, and we've checked in with him, and he seems to be doing okay.
Thank you.
Of course. In terms of the public safety report, only, as you can see, a total of 383 incidents. Nothing really that, or events, I should say, nothing really that jumps out to speak of. We have continued our traffic enforcement on Springfield. I went back and looked since April 1st. We've done 25 traffic enforcement initiatives on Springfield, as well as some other traffic enforcement that didn't amount to a traffic enforcement initiative. So generally, if they're going to set up and spend a considerable amount of time, we call it an initiative. If they're just going to make a traffic stop here or there, it doesn't amount to that. So we have been keeping an eye on the speed, and we will continue to keep an eye on the speed, particularly without the crosswalk that's in place, and as well as the signs that were placed there for the crosswalk. So we'll continue to monitor that situation closely.
I want to ask you two questions with respect to what you just mentioned, Chief. One actually is a follow-up to Ms. Debbie's.
I was going to address that.
Oh, and thank you. And then so I'll let you do that, and then I'll mention what I wanted to say.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, with regard to your question, Debbie, I instructed Sergeant Kirkner and Sergeant Schlereth, the two speed trailer supervisors, as a result of the comments the mayor mentioned a couple, I think it was two
meetings ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had them deploy it there. There's a number of factors that go into where to deploy. One is the location, where it can be safely deployed. We try to always catch the area with the most traffic, depending on the direction. So I trust them to deploy it where it's needed, and we'll take your comments into consideration. But, yeah, We do the best we can, yeah, of course.
And the results of that we can collect.
I can bring
and
those up,
provide?
yeah, I've looked at them, but I don't
Yeah,
don't
no, that's
recall
cool. Thank you.
offhand. But we can certainly report to you on what those the surveys.
so little traffic there that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. The concern expressed to me directly was about the delivery trucks and their ripping and tearing, was I think the phrase used. Yeah. So
I
thank you.
specifically mentioned that to the officers to
Yes.
keep an eye out for delivery trucks that were speeding through town. So.
Cool.
There's one company.
Yeah.
The pizza delivery guys.
All delivery trucks.
Yeah.
And the ones
Thank
with
you,
the
Chief.
funny sign on top of the cars, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Now what was I going to say? I knew that was going to happen. It'll come back to me.
Okay.
Chief, if
Yeah.
I know.
a resident has a concern about speeding on their road, do they just contact the police department?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, we document all complaints and we ask our officers to pay particular attention to them. It's helpful if we have a description of the vehicles and or the operator. Tag would be great, but yeah.
I remember what it is now. You had mentioned Springfield, and it made me think of this. I spent some time with a resident who lives off of Springfield on one of the side roads, and she and I took a walk up Springfield. And with our new sidewalks that have just been installed, there's an opportunity for the middle school students walking home and back to school to not use the elevated sidewalk. Because there is now a little bit of a curb that extends and abuts out from the elevated sidewalk enough that it looks like from one end you can walk on it, and then it gets skinnier and skinnier and disappears, and by that time they're in the road. So I just was wondering if, like, maybe at the time of school walking, that walkers are coming and going, walkers. If you could maybe ask one of your officers to just post up and advise the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to use their noggins and to use the elevated sidewalk. And hopefully we won't have to actually do any kind of ballot or something that says to people who aren't familiar with the sidewalk, who are coming up the hill, to go up and don't go around the elevated sidewalk, because they are ending up in the street.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can certainly pass that along.
Cool.
As you know, the officers are there when Doug is not there.
Yes.
On most occasions. There
Yes.
are times when we just don't have the
Yeah.
staffing to be there.
I mean, it's further down, obviously, the street. The kids have that are coming up to school, I think, is the ones that are
That's
misbehaving.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Pass that along.
Thank you.
So, Chief, the other thing I heard walking around right now is concerns about Jennifer Way, and I think you've heard concerns before, but a lot of kids in that space, in those two courts, and a lot of really fast traffic. So there was a request kind of when we were doing the speed alignment, like, does that area fall into the school zone? So I said I would bring it up here, so if we can just kind of keep track of if there's something we can do on Jennifer Way. And I guess you have put the trailer there at times as well.
Sure, quite a few
So-
times. You know, we've gotten complaints, especially with regard to running the stop signs.
You know what I just thought of, Chief? Maybe when you guys set up a trailer, you could be putting the results of that traffic study on your Facebook page, and just say, here's where it was posted up the last 10 days or 2 weeks, wherever it is, and here are the results. I think it would be helpful for people to know that we are attempting to address the speeding problems that we do have in the places that we have them, and that they're sometimes intermittent and sometimes curtailed by knowledge, right? And so I'm hoping that
Okay.
might be helpful.
Okay, yeah, I get a very thick packet on each one that breaks
Yeah.
down a lot of different variables and dynamics, but maybe just a summary
Yeah,
of
just a quick
the
summary of
average
here's.
speed, the number of vehicles that
Yes,
pass through. and-
Absolutely, and how many of the average speed of the total number of cars, the average speed, and how many are over 5 or 10 miles per hour, whatever the speed limit is, like whatever you decide to be the threshold over that, to report how many of them are. Thank you.
Sure, I can do
One
that.
that can help long-term if we have kind of a consistent report to
Absolutely.
determine where.
Sure.
That's exactly right.
Because
Yep.
oftentimes residents feel the traffic is going a lot faster than
Correct.
it
That is
really
true.
is.
Correct.
And the results show, and even though it's just a snapshot,
Yeah.
if it's deployed for a week or 10 days, it's just a snapshot, but it often shows that the speeds are actually lower than what they anticipated.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's also then the volume of younger children
Yeah.
in certain areas that play into the street, or, that start to get a concern
Sure.
as well for residents.
Sure.
Anything else for Chief?
Can I just mention
Oh, please.
real quickly?
Yes.
Real quickly.
Sorry.
I mentioned, I think I teased to you two meetings ago that about Sergeant Lacey being selected as a top cop. It's
Yes.
official now. He
Oh,
is the 2024 top cop for the MML Police Executive Association. So
2 out of 3.
Congratulations.
not too bad.
All right.
Not too bad. I can't promise you next year because
Yeah.
I'm no longer the chair. But had nothing to do with the
I
voting.
know
I
you
swear.
don't, but now.
If you see Patty, make sure you congratulate him
Will
on
do.
that. Did want to congratulate Officer Jacobs as well as K-9 Redder for obtaining their certification. It was a long process, and I think the way that we did it caused it to be longer because we weren't full time every day. It was here and there, but he stuck with his handler, and the two of them completed certification. So they're officially certified as for narcotics detection at this point. He will have to go back for more training for some other things, but right now he's fully certified.
Canine officer.
If you see Redder, congratulate him on
Sure will.
graduating.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you for that.
One last thing is, as you all know, Auxiliary Lieutenant Jeff Queen has been overseas for the last 6 months. He's due back in early May, and we are planning a welcome home party for him. The American Legion has been incredibly gracious. They're offering to cover the entire event, food and drinks, for as many people as we want. So put this on your calendar if you don't mind, May 23rd, starting at 5 p.m. As many of you folks, as well as our staff, will be there to welcome Jeff back and tell him to get back to work.
Yeah, perfect.
Because we need him.
That's fantastic.
You mentioned about the earlier about the vacancies.
Yes.
We have lost another, I think, at least one or two more auxiliary officers. So he's going to have some recruiting to do for the
Oh, boy.
auxiliary as well. So
Well, we'll make him sorry he left.
absolutely,
Perfect.
What's the time on the 23rd for that?
5 p.m.
Okay.
That's Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
It's the beginning of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Friday, yeah.
We actually were planning it the Friday before, but it didn't work out for Jeff. So we figured we'd do it what works out best for him.
Yes, of course.
He is the man of the hour.
And now President Carter has a
I
comment.
have a question, and if you don't know it at the top of your head, if you can bring it next time. I know with the weather being that it is, what is our helmet requirements for the children riding their bikes on the streets? Helmets.
I'll defer to Lieutenant Kilgore for that one because he has issued several citations for the helmet laws in the past. And
There was a time that anybody had to wear a helmet. Everybody had to wear a helmet. And I do believe that has been amended to people under 18. Now, I don't do anything anymore, as we've discussed in previous
operational,
meetings.
you should say.
Correct. So I believe it is, I want to say it's 16 or under, but I will check that and email you the collective later this evening.
So there's Maryland transportation law, and then we have a town ordinance as well. Which are you referring to?
You're
The most
talking about the local
restrictive
ordinance?
Correct, and I know that we coincided with Howard County because a lot of our bikers go back and forth.
I want to believe it's 18 or under, but I will do that.
We'll double
as
check
soon as I
that
get
and
back
get
to the
back.
office and email.
And is that just for bicycles, for
So
skateboards?
state law for motorized vehicles require a helmet. You get into like the scooters and such.
Yeah.
I believe all those will fall under the transportation article for the helmet. Our ordinance, and I'm searching, I think our ordinance requires that any scooter, bicycle, skateboard, every juvenile has to wear a helmet.
okay,
Does that make sense? But I will get that answer for you and email you tonight.
okay. I just want to let the public know that it's
Good time to
bicycle
remind
season.
people. Mm-hmm.
I've seen some little ones with them.
Mm-hmm.
And Councilman Dyer, I think.
I haven't asked this question in a couple of months, and you know I'm going to. Do you see any nascent trends that concern you that we need to be aware of? Things that started out ones and twos and are now bothering you because they seem to be growing.
Well, remember, I've been away for.
As have I. But I'm talking about like the last year. You know, a year ago, I never would have thought this is a problem. Now,
I can probably answer that, and I don't think there is anything concerning. We have had spats of, well, I don't actually want to say it out loud, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
And that would be a concern, but
nothing we can do about that.
knock on everything you can wood, we haven't had anything.
Okay.
We did have another catalytic converter theft.
We did just today.
Just today.
Yes. So-
And that
so
has happened periodically, not to the point where it's, I would call it a trend.
Is that at the same location as we have been seeing it happening?
This is North Avenue today.
Okay. Thank you.
But that's always something to
And I separate that from, we know this is a problem, we know how to fix it. The catalytic converter problem is, it's literally falling out of the sky on us, and I know you can't do anything.
That's the second job and they're done.
Right, I mean, it's like poof, bam. I'm talking about things that you go, I really would like the council to work on this, so in 6 months, I don't have to worry about that. Okay,
nothing that I can think of.
kind of thing I always ask, you know that.
Sure,
Thanks, Councilman Dyer. And thank you, Chief.
of course.
Appreciate
Thank you.
That brings us to our council/commission liaison reports. I'll start with Mr. Dyer.
Well, it turns out with not only me missing, someone else, so they canceled the Cable Regulatory Commission for the quarter, so I have nothing.
Okay, well, thank you. And welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have nothing.
Thank you.
Spark met last week and just getting ready for the summer.
Awesome.
HDC met Wednesday, April 23rd for one issue on 7618 Main Street. Actually, I shouldn't say issue, but an application, which is the station. The architect was here. Great conversation. There was some recommendations, but it passed. And there was tears because it was my last HDC meeting. But a couple of people introduced themselves to me. They're like, "Who?
Yeah.
Who are you?" So
Who are you?
I just expressed. Yes, that's probably it.
Well, I want to thank you for your liaisonship
Yes.
to the HTC, Councilman Grassley. Thank you.
Well, I did express to him how much I was probably present in half, but I watched all the meetings, and those guys are very motivated and
They are.
knowledgeable of the HTC area, and they really bring a lot to the table when they get together. So just goodbye. Say
Yeah,
goodbye.
that's great to hear. A report back. I mean, I see it too when I watch the meetings, and it's the real deal.
Yep.
Yeah. Councilman Keenan.
Yeah, DSC, really the past 2 weeks have been focused on the Art and Wine Festival and getting ready, 7611 Main Street, getting ready to open. You're all invited tomorrow,
Yes.
as you recall, 6 p.m.
Yes.
for the walkthrough of 7611 Main Street,
Yes.
if you can make it. That's great. And the Art and Wine Festival is this upcoming Saturday. I don't want to jinx it, but the weather looks really good so far.
That's it.
So that's kiss of death right there. But
Go buy a snowblower. Go buy a snowblower.
Here comes the deluge.
12 to 4, tickets are still available, and there's volunteer opportunities available as well. And the DSC has begun applying for several grants, a technical assistance grant, and a Maryland Improvement Program grant, along with a BGE grant for stringing lights at the building. So that's it.
My only announcement has to do with a deposition that I was deposed in November of 2023, and a piece of that was released on a social media platform recently. And I guess I would just put out there that if anybody has any questions for the mayor about the deposition and the edited version that was left loose, know that it was provided to the person who posted it by the Warfield Development master developers themselves. Mr. Steve McLeaf provided a copy to all of the non-incumbent candidates for council and mayor. And I have nothing to hide. The town has nothing to hide. I will be glad to share the unedited version with anyone. You can read it. It takes you less time to read it than it does to watch it. It's 5.5+ hours long. It caused TMJ for myself, and the leading up to it, the weeks leading up to it. And it was the reason I was deposed was because because of the litigation that we had initiated with the Warfield Development Corporation, or I should say the Warfield companies, sorry, as a result of their being in breach of contract. And then there was a counterclaim that ensued from them, and we were in the discovery period. And not only was I deposed, others were as well. However, Mr. McLeaf and Mr. Connolly's deposition were scheduled for 2 consecutive days in early March of 2024, and that never happened because of their response to our foreclosing on the vacant parcels, because they owe the town $1.1 million. Their response to that was to go into file for bankruptcy. That halted all further discovery and litigation-related matters. And the only other comment I'd like to share is for edification and for information sharing with the public regarding that post was the, I'm sure, intentional misinformation that included something to the effect of the line of questioning that was shared with everyone was questions about something called a DDA, and it's a development and disposition agreement that has nothing to do with the sales contract with the Warfield folks. It's a contract between the town and the state of Maryland from 2002, and again, has nothing to do with the sales contract, although unfortunately that was the message that was tied to the release of the tape that I didn't know anything about the contract of sale, that I had not read it and I'm not familiar with it, and that is not what the line of questioning was about. I'm very familiar with the sales contract, probably the nuances that even people that are filling others with heads with don't know. So that's just for my sake. I wanted everybody to know you all are in good hands with Stacy. Okay, I have no further, anyone else? We good? Okay. I have to report we will be going into closed session this evening, and I will now read the necessary jargon. Here it comes. That meeting is proposed to be closed pursuant to the general provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, sections 3-305B, 8. To consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. That pending litigation is, of course, with the Warfield lawsuits. I will now call for a 5-minute recess to allow the gallery to clear before we go into return to open and then go into close. Thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate you. This is for recess.
Is it 5 or 6?
Yeah, please leave that.